Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or if you're watching on our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does, THI publisher Andrew Jones. And Andrew, we're here for the 7th episode of our Carolina football ISO series. If you haven't seen the ones we've already put out after this video is done, click on our channel below. There'll be a playlist right on the homepage, and you can go watch all of those. And obviously, stay tuned for the ones we'll have rolling out over the next couple weeks as well. But before we dive into this one, AJ, on Jahvaree Ritzie, the first true freshman that we've covered in this series so far, make sure you guys head on over to TarHeelIllustrated.com, sign up for just $8.33 a month, get access to our premium accounts, access to our premium articles, access to our premium boards, and that brings you a ton of content that you can't get unless you're signed up. We've mentioned it a few times, but a lot of our recruiting stuff we don't post on the front. It's strictly in the boards, whether it's David Sisk in basketball recruiting, Dina King in football recruiting. If you want to see that stuff, whether it's scoops, insight, what we're hearing, you got to be a part of our community, and you got to be a part of a premium subscriber. So after this video is done, click the description below, and you will find a link to our website in there where you can sign up for just $8.33 a month. But AJ, let's talk about Jahvaree Ritzie. I mean, we were kind of contemplating, do we want to do true freshmen? We haven't really seen a ton of them yet. We've got glimpses in the spring, but, haven't really seen them play in a game yet. But Jahvaree Ritzie, man, Diego Pounds, Caleb Hood, and Jahvaree Ritzie during the spring were kind of the three freshmen that stood out to me the most. And there might be a couple of them there, depending on what day it was, that impressed me as well. But for me, Ritzie was the most impressive true freshman that I saw in those few open practices and during the spring game. So big, just aggressive as well. He really looked good going up against some of the older linemen in some of the 1v1, kind of 2v1 drills that they did against the O-linemen. Just doesn't look like a true freshman out there in terms of his size and ability. So Ritzie's a guy for me that when I saw him a couple of years ago, I should say, at a Rivals camp in Charlotte, I was like, okay, I like what this guy's done. He ends up committing to Carolina. And he's just so much bigger than he was back then, and so much more of an impressive player and athlete than he was. So made a lot of strides since then. But overall, I think Jahvaree Ritzie is a guy that is going to play this season. If you're a Carolina fan, I think he's one of these true freshmen, especially these early enrollees, that you're going to be really excited about. Well, once the season starts in Blacksburg.
The thing that jumps out about Jahvaree Ritzie when you first see him in person up close in practice is that he does not look like a true freshman.
No.
And it's not just his size. A lot of true freshmen these days are big, especially after they've been hanging out with Brian Hess for a few months.
Won't take long.
Brian Hess changes bodies fast.
Yeah, he's crazy.
But it's the way he plays. I've had high school coaches, when talking about defensive linemen, especially long defensive linemen, about one of the concerns of going to college they have to learn how to do is they have to learn how to play lower. They have to learn how to get their rear ends down when they're in a three-pointer. Sometimes you still see 4-point stances, certainly in goal line situations. They have to get low. They have to be able to shoot through and use their strength. And Jahvaree Ritzie plays low. I remember when Carolina had Jalen Dalton. Jalen was a highly decorated high school player, and they moved him inside to tackle his second year. And the problem he had, and he talked about all the time, was getting his rear end low, getting pre-snap being lower so he gets off the snap a little bit better. I'll never forget, we took a picture at practice one time where the defensive line was down like that, and then there was Jalen still up like that. And that was his biggest issue. And I'm not picking on Jalen, I'm just using it as an example. When Jahvaree's out there, you do not see stuff like that from him. He gets off the ball quickly, gets off the ball with strength, using that explosion because he's lower. His technique when engaging with an offensive tackle is really good. He gets around him. I'm going to use an old term. I don't know how often they use this term anymore in football, but like a swim technique for a defensive lineman to get past the offensive lineman and get to the quarterback or get to a ball carrier before or around the time he gets to the line of scrimmage. And Jahvaree did that a lot in the scrimmages that we saw. People saw him throughout. I mean, even in the spring game, all the times we had a chance to see, I always saw something from him that I thought, wow, that guy is way ahead of where a lot of true freshman defensive linemen are from a technique standpoint, from a fundamental standpoint. So because of that, and because he's so quick, because he's explosive, because he's got a nose for the ball, which I don't think is something that people say a lot about defensive linemen. They talk more about linebackers or safeties like that, but he's got a nose for the ball. He finds it and gets to it. He's going to play. He may not play 35 snaps a game, but he's going to play. And the other thing is Mac Brown talked about him very late in the spring when he was talking about the need to find 6 to 8 guys at the very minimum for their defensive line rotation. And he said about all of them, they've got to be able to rush the passer. The way college football is these days, you got to plug gaps. You got to have your gap guys, but you've got to be able to rush the passer. And that's something that Jahvaree Ritzie can already do. And because of that, he'll at least play in some pass rushing situations. And it will be interesting to see how quickly he adapts to a lot of the run stuff when people run right at him. How do you fight off an offensive tackle? How do you use your technique in order to make? You don't have to make all the tackles, but if you can shorten, shrink the gap, shrink the hole, if he could slow it back, make a back have to shift a little bit, he gives the linebackers a little bit more time to come in and make plays. And so I think he's going to be that guy eventually. I don't know how much he's going to be that guy on September 3rd in Blacksburg, but he will have a hand on the ground, and he will rush the Hokies quarterback some that night.
Yeah, completely agree, AJ. Last thing I want to kind of talk about, do you think Ritzie's kind of a prime example of what Mac Brown's trying to build in terms of these recruiting classes, bringing in ready-made guys that are not only maybe mentally gifted enough to go in right away and can handle the scheme and whatnot of learning a new defense at the college level or offense, but also a guy who's physically ready and already looks the part. And to me, that's Ritzie kind of encompasses what Mac Brown's trying to build there with his recruiting classes.
Well, I think the thing that sets his readiness off to me is the fact of what I was just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He's sound. His technique is sound. He's a smart player. He looks like he's been coached really, really well in high school.
Yeah, he definitely does.
So when he got to Carolina, maybe they didn't have to spend as much time with certain things with him that they do with other guys. They're true freshmen.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to teach a lot of these guys stuff. Kevin Hester's a guy that played basketball. He played 1 year of high school football. And before he even played in a game, he had a couple of offers because you're like, oh my gosh, that guy's now playing football. I want everything to do with that guy. Well, Jahvaree has a lot of those natural things, but you could be the most gifted athlete. You could be big, strong, quick. You could look awesome coming out of the tunnel in that uniform. But if your technique isn't good, if you don't line up right, if they call something they have to shift and you don't shift properly, you're not going to help your team. You're not going to get on the field. Mm-hmm. So Jahvaree had a lot of things in him that were ready when he arrived, aside from the physicality, aside from his natural gifts. He's got those too. The hardest thing for high school football players to do when they have to transition into college, it's for the guys at the line of scrimmage. You see more skilled guys come in, they can help out a lot more than high school. Because in high school, you're going up against guys like me every week. And suddenly you're going up against these big time college football players who are it's just a totally different level, more so than anywhere else. It's tough for quarterbacks too, but more true freshman quarterbacks play than true freshman linemen. Mm-hmm. And a guy like Ritzie, as a freshman who can already rush the passer, he'll get some early confidence probably, and he'll eventually develop into a guy who can play every down. I think he could be an every down tackle, but he's going to get on the field. Mm-hmm. I think fans are going to like him. He could be one of those guys that gets a few sacks and people are like, wow, he's got a cool name. He looks really good in the uniform. And I don't know what kind of a character he is yet. Some guys dance a little bit. They swagger.
I can see him having that.
A little bit after a sack or they hit the quarterback as he's throwing. If he's got some of that too, fans are going to love this kid by mid-October. Even though he won't be a starter, mm-hmm. but he's going to be a part of what you were talking about, of a line that they're building that is multi-dimensional, multi-layered, and has dudes. You mm-hmm. want dudes up front that can get after it, and Jahvaree Ritzie is a dude that can get after it.
Yeah, agreed. Mac Brown is definitely, especially on that D-line over the past couple of years, has brought in a lot of dudes, and I'm sure they'll start reaping the rewards from that as well. Just a ton of young talent down there that I think over the next couple of years is going to continue to develop and really blossom here soon. So good place to wrap this one up, AJ. If you haven't seen our Carolina football ISOs that we've put out, make sure you go watch those after this one's done, and click the description below. Find a link to our website. And if you're not a premium subscriber over there, go ahead and sign up for just $8.33 a month. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. You guys know the drill. Like the video if you enjoy it. Share it with your friends and fellow Carolina fans, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.